Taxes. They're perfectly fair in every way. The money is always spent wisely in exactly the way that you'd want, and you love paying them. Taxes. God, they're awesome. Hi internets, I'm Ross. No one really likes taxes, but your politics can change why you don't like them. If you're on one side, you're the only ones who don't like stealing hard-earned cash from people who deserve it. If you're on the other side, you're the only ones who don't like stealing hard-earned cash from the ones who deserve it. So, which side are you on? This is the Talk Better Project. You're watching part 1 about Republicans in Congress unveiling a new tax plan. Let's take a look at people's feelings about taxes. When you're talking about taxes, you're not really talking about just one thing. You're kind of talking about a whole lot of different things all folded into one. For me, I think there are 3 key questions that a government has to ask. 1, how should it spend its people's money? 2, how should it get that money from its people? And 3, who should that money come from? You know what this needs? A metaphor! Imagine a river. Imagine a river. Put a town on one side of the river and a rich farmer on the other. The farmer has a whole lot of grain. The town is growing and wants that grain to make bread. The town leaders have a great idea. We'll build a bridge. Then the farmer can get into town, sell the grain, we can have more bread. Everyone wins. It's a great idea. But then someone asks, who will pay for the bridge? I want you to take a minute and think about that question. Who ought to pay for this new bridge? It's not as simple as who will profit from the bridge, because in the end, everyone will. In politics, there's a way of talking about how people generally answer questions like this. It's the left-right divide. Maybe you think a toll on the bridge would be fairest. Then everyone pays the same amount and everyone gets bread. Or taxes on the sale of the grain, but especially sales of the bread, since if someone wants the bread badly enough, they should pay for how it gets made. Well, people on the right generally agree with that. Now, on the other hand, maybe you think a toll is unfair, because each citizen actually has less money than the farmer, and would struggle to pay the toll. Plus, the farmer only has to cross once to sell the grain and make a big profit. Maybe you think it'd be fair to tax the property the farmer owns, and the millers and bakers too, since they have the most property and will still be profiting from sales they're only able to perform because of that property. People on the left would generally agree. This left-right divide is present in all countries at all times. In American politics, Republicans tend to represent the right, and Democrats tend to represent the left. So no matter which side you end up on, know that you're part of a long, proud tradition of quibbling, fighting, and screaming over it. So why are we talking about this today? Well, in early November, Republicans began work on a new bill. It's a tax reform bill, brilliantly and subtly named Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which abbreviates nicely to TSJA. Now, we'll be talking about the details of TSJA in part 2 of this series, and it's still in early draft, so it may not pass as it is. But TSJA changes a lot about how our tax code functions, and according to the Republicans who wrote it, that's because they've identified the parts of our economy that can make the most improvements for the most people the fastest, and they're realigning the tax code to make that more possible. Meanwhile, people who disagree, which actually includes a lot of Republicans. But Democrats especially are coming out against the plan and saying that it favors the rich, treats corporations better than it treats people, and hurts the middle class and the poor. So let's head back to our metaphor. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey, I don't have a sponsor, but I do have patrons, a group of people who think that the way we talk about politics in this country has got to change. These people put their money where their mouths are, and I really, really appreciate them. And I hope that you'll become one of them by clicking the link below the video to patreon.com/thetalkbetterproject. You can join for however much per month you're comfortable with giving, and maybe become a contributing producer. Alright, so we've been talking about the disagreement over the Republicans' new tax bill over how to improve the economy. So the Republicans who wrote TSJA say that if the farmer's property were taxed less, the farmer could afford to hire more citizens, then grow more grain, and sell more bread. Democrats disagree and say that the tolls on the bridge take away so much of citizens' money, they can't afford bread. So instead, we should tax the farmer's property. There you go, that's it. The Republican tax reform bill isn't even remotely more complicated than this metaphor. American writer Upton Sinclair said, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." Americans tend to take that quote one step further, though. Whether you're on the left or the right, Americans tend not to think that their opponents could be decent or good people. Let's go back to our 3 questions. Democrats on the left tend to say that money should be spent on the least advantaged. High amounts of wealth and property should be taxed, and the richest and best off should bear the largest burden. Republicans and the right tend to think money should be spent on infrastructure available to all equally. Means of production and sales should be taxed, and the tax load should be evenly distributed. But there's an extremely cynical way to view each of these. Lazy, greedy, evil, selfish. These three questions have been around for hundreds and thousands of years. They involve deep questions of fairness, equality, group identity, and even perceptions of harm. I don't think there's a right answer. I don't think there's any answer that makes everyone happy. But the great thing about democracy is that there might be an answer that makes everyone equally unhappy. The trick is this. Try and imagine that someone who disagrees with you about taxation doesn't do it to spite you, but because they see a different path to prosperity. Money makes everything ugly. But we can talk about taxes. We just have to avoid cynicism. Next time on the Talk Better Project. Just a few of the facts and details of the Republicans' tax plan. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Tizikja, tikjikja, tizikja, tizikja, tizija, tikajja, tizikja, tizija, tizikja, tizija, tizikja, tikajka, tikajka. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you liked it. Please like the video, share it with someone else.